Hello and welcome. This is an Amonkhet draft. We're jumping in with a rare Rags to Riches. This is really good against any aggressive deck. Kills most of the creatures that are bothering you. It's a pretty heavy commitment to black. It doesn't require blue, but that's some upside. And it could be the pick. The other good card here is Trial of Zeal. And that's another good one. We're not really passing much red if we do that. Trial of Solidarity is actually pretty good. And the Cartouche of Ambition is another good one, but let's take the Trial of Zeal here. I like the idea of infinite lightning bolts if you get a bunch of cartouches. And the cartouches are all really pretty good too. Wow, so Lord of the Accursed, second. An uncommon is taken, so someone liked something more than this. One of the best decks you can get is just a black-white zombies deck, but that kind of gives up on red here, so that might be one option, just take the Lord. Another option would be Magma Spray, and keep going with this trial. Now, the black-white deck is strong enough that, or just really any black deck with some zombies, that I might just take this Lord of the Accursed. Another option here would be Throne of the God Pharaoh, since it kind of goes into some hyper-aggressive blue-based decks with unblockable creatures. Alright, and a Binding Mummy here. Yeah, Trial of Zeal, but the red cards coming are not good. Binding Mummy's also not great unless you are in the zombie deck, and then it is top-notch. So we can take that here and maybe just cut this strategy. So let's see who's passing to us. We've got Undertaker, and we're passing to Phil Ivey Jr., a well-known player, just regular old Phil Ivey, but this is a new one. I'm not sure who this is. Okay. Not the real Phil Ivey. Miasmatic Mummy. There's some actually good red cards in this pack. Neff Crop Entangler being the better one, the 2-drop that reliably gets in some damage. Flameblade Adept is also okay, just as a cheap evasive creature. And a zombie, but not really the best zombie that we could ask for here. So we could take the zombie just to try to be in this deck, but cards like this go a bit later. So maybe it's right to take the Neff Crop Entangler here because we already have a really good red card. We can keep going with that. Bloodlust Inciter, also a fine card in this deck. I'm not sure if it's what we want. We've got 3 medium quality red cards at different mana costs, and it's really just which one do we think we need. The Bloodlust Inciter is the most aggressive. The Minotaur Sure Shot works pretty well with the Initiate. I'm just going to go with the Sure Shot. We don't have a 3-drop creature yet, and it's just more power. Now we can take Onward to Victory, maybe get some easy wins with this card and have a white-red deck. We already have a Trampler, so that's pretty good. It works well with Fling, and the Double Strike can be neat to finish an opponent. Maybe not the most exciting card, but it's still pretty good. Here we've got Cartouche of Strength, which could fit really well into a red-green deck with Trial of Zeal. The Trample is useful on a lot of the big creatures you can get. Quarry Hauler also good. Not as good as the Cartouche in blue and green, so we can just go with that here. Alright, Pursue Glory is good with Trample. If we're going to take a red card, that looks like it. Winds of Rebuke is a nice one, and Doomed Dissenter for getting into a possible zombie deck. Just a nice little defensive guy. Kind of a hard pick because Winds of Rebuke I think is the strongest card here, and we're not really sure what colors we're going to be yet. We can take the Dissenter though, since Lord is a good option. Fling. Yeah, having access to one fling would help us out. We've got Binding Mummy, we could take Jeru's Resolve, but it doesn't help us all that much. With high power creatures, I guess it's kind of good. I'll take the Fling, though. Throne of the God Pharaoh Wheels. It's a bit strange to see. It's normally not a super playable card, but it's similar to Consuming Fervor in that you're devoting a lot to this strategy of just turning creatures sideways. I think we can take it here. It's a little more versatile. Floodwaters. Alright, well, blue-red. The cards are being passed to us, so maybe there's something in it. Honed Kopish. Ornery Kudu, that's a late one. And Honed Kopish. When in doubt, go with the creature. This shouldn't really be here this late, so it's kind of a sign. We've already got a Cartouche of Strength, so if green is really open, we should keep that in mind. So sometimes you narrow in on your colors earlier than this, but we just have to go with the flow here. Lay bare the heart. I think our black is stronger at this point. And Lay bare the heart is just a fine playable. Shadow of the Grave. We could build a real sweet deck with this. But yeah, maybe we can pick a more reliable card like Cartouche of Strength. And keep going with that. I mean, we did get the late Kudu. It'll be our second Cartouche, which fits well into a deck with any number of trials. We already have one really good trial. It's unclear if we're going to play the Throne right now. It requires a lot of creatures and good attacks, but we can keep an eye on it. Yeah, I love formats where the value of a card varies dramatically from deck to deck, so it really rewards knowing the synergies. Oh wow, Decimator Beetle. Can we just jump ship here and go Mardu or something? I think we can. It's powerful enough of a card, and it's miles ahead of anything else in this pack. Except, well, there's three other good cards. The removal spells here, Gale Strike, Time to Reflect, and Electrify are all premium if you have the right deck for it. So there's something to be said for taking Electrify here, but the Decimator Beetle is a real way to win a game. And I'm happy taking that. Alright, we get past a pretty bomby rare, Curator of Mysteries. Really, it's just a 4/4 flying for 4. I mean, that is good. Unfortunately, it's double blue, so it doesn't fit into anything we're leaning towards. Evolving Wilds might help us out significantly. And then there's Colossopede. And Colossopede is just a huge creature. So it works really well with these cartouches. It works really well if we're ramping up to anything, so I think we just take the Colossopede. This card has really proven its worth in this format. It doesn't look like much, but it's just exactly what you want most of the time. Well, we could be splashing red, and we could be splashing black, it's unclear, or we could be splashing green even. In any case, we're going to want some fixing. So what can we take here? I mean, one of these green cards will probably wheel, maybe not our Sandworm, but just to have a playable deck, we need to take this Evolving Wilds. We get a Synchronized Strike here, and Bitterblade Warrior. The Strike does come in handy, but we're low on creatures right now, and especially 2-drops. You know, if we end in a primarily green-black or green-red deck, one of these might not even make our cut. So we're really starving for these 2-drop creatures, and we should take this Bitterblade Warrior. And another Lay Bare the Heart. You don't want too many of this card. You could play 2. It's not that exciting. Festering Mummy could work really well in this -1/-1 counter deck if we get some payoffs for that. We don't have them yet, but that doesn't mean we won't get them. And it looks like these are the open colors. We can easily splash the Trial of Zeal. And I think we should just take the Festering Mummy. Got an unplayable Desert, unless you're monocolored. A lot of blue cards coming around, blue-red. Hieroglyphic Illumination. And we've run out completely of black and green cards, so that's a bad sign here. We've got the Jeskai deck being passed around. The blue cards here aren't really amazing, but they're solid. I mean, Enigma Drake is always a fine one. Since there's nothing really here for us, we'll just take the best card, which is Enigma Drake. It's possible we splash... Well, let's take Tormenting Voice. I think it's more likely we play that. But that was not a good pack for us. Unburden. Cartouche of Strength. It's possible, or Zeal rather. I was looking down here. That does help us, and it's possible, again, that we're in more of a red-green deck. So it's another way to return this Trial of Zeal. Or we could take the Unburden, which cycles. It's never going to be too bad. The Cartouche of Zeal is just a bit better, though. Bontu's Monument for a super heavy creature deck. Usually you want to avoid the monuments unless you're looking at the white one, or the green one can be good too. Ancient Crab and Haze of Pollen. Maybe Haze of Pollen gets in as a sideboard trick. What do we have? Tormenting Voice. We already have one Tormenting Voice. We're not really going into white here, so let's just take this Honed Copish. Hopefully that works out for us. Shed Weakness is a great trick on its own, and then if you have some -1/-1 counters floating around, it gets even better. And as expected, these Pouncing Cheetahs wheel. Take one of those. I don't think we ever play 2 Haze of Pollens, but it's also unlikely we need the Scarab Feast. Benefaction has proven to be pretty good in a deck like this, where you have some Trials and Cartouches to tutor up, and of course a bunch of creatures. So you're almost always going to hit one thing off of it, and, you know, a majority of the time you could hit 2 as well. Ooh, Heaven to Earth. That might be it for us if we have some tough creatures out there like Colossopeds and Decimator Beetles. This is just a solid card, and a great way to deal with a pesky flyer or 2. So, good thing we're in red-green, right? Even though we wavered in black for a bit. So now we just splash black for this Decimator Beetle, and that ought to do it. So we can get the Minotaur Sure Shot back in here. Honed Copish might not be so good if we're playing a bunch of Cartouches, because it fits pretty much the same role, and our Benefaction won't find it. This guy only gets enchantments and creatures, and one of each, up to one of each. So in this pack, we're looking to pick up some 2-drops, and maybe some more things like Ornery Kudu, just as creatures that are kind of better when we have Shed Weakness and Decimator Beetle in our deck, but already fine on their own. You're never excited to play the 2/3, but oftentimes you're going to put that -1/-1 counter on an exerted creature or something to bring out this potential. Well, I did say we wanted to find those 2-drops, but we're also looking for 4-drops, and this Minotaur is just such a beater. 4 damage, 4/3 attacker, and then sometimes you just force them to block with 2 things and kill them both. So solid. We could have taken another Nefkrop Entangler. They're a bit fragile. They're good, but they're just a bit fragile, and we're not loaded up on 4-drops yet, so we can take our second Minotaur. We already have this Minotaur Archer, which doesn't really make any sense. But there he is. I'm glad we have this Evolving Wilds, so we can easily splash. And we've got pretty much enough cards to... Oh wow. I was going to say we have enough cards that we can put together the whatever, 6 more we need to make a deck. Heart Pierce Manticore. Yeah, that's exactly what we need for this deck. It's like another fling effect. We can exert a creature and then sack it and kill something or kill our opponent. It's got Embalm, so it's just a 4-mana 4/3 that has Embalm, so it's just it's already good, but then the fling effect when it enters the battlefield makes it that much better. And we need creatures. We have 8 here. We should be able to piece together a few more, but any creature is going to look more appealing than Cartouche of Strength here. So, more cartouches, and a Hooded Brawler. The art is wrong, but that's got to be the pick here. This is the perfect kind of card to fling. It's also really hard to block, the 4 toughness for 3 mana. You can often get through things, and usually people don't want to double block with 2/2s to trade with this. So he is a solid creature. Here's another Manticore. We've got the Heart Piercer, now we can get the regular old Manticore of the Gauntlet. Well, not even regular, this is a foil. Even better though is this Bitterblade Warrior, which is going to be great. And pairing this with like a Cartouche of Strength, maybe you can kill a 7/7 or something if you give it Death Touch and then fight it. Just kind of dreaming. Alright, Manticore of the Gauntlet. I will take that now. We've got some combos with it, and we need more creatures. Otherwise, we could look at the Stinging Shot or Spidery Grasp. Kenra Charioteer and Defiant Greatmaw. What are the chances one of these wheels? Very low. But they're both premium. I think if we were black-red, or sorry, black-green rather, we'd take the Greatmaw because it has some good upside in that deck. Of course we're not, we are red-green, so the Charioteer looks better here. Another Manticore. It does look like we have a lot of 3-drops. Some of them need upgrades, like the Pouncing Cheetah. And Benefaction doesn't really count, because we're not looking to curve out with Benefaction. We really want our 3-drops to fit in that slot. So we could take an Ornery Kudu or another Manticore of the Gauntlet. We don't have many places to put this extra -1/-1 counter. We only have a couple ways to get rid of it. But all in all, the 3-drops are a little more important than the Manticores here. Okay, Cradle of the Accursed. I'm not going to play another Cheetah, or maybe not even the first one. And certainly not 2 Benefactions. Nice little sideboard cycler. Really late Consuming Fervor. And some more stuff. Like I said, Pursue Glory works well with Trample, and we do have this guy who gives all our guys Trample. So maybe we get away with this. It's expensive, but I think it's fine. Fling number 2 is not as important as number 1. But this looks about right. Given an Evolving Wilds and kind of a spell land, we can play 17 total lands. We don't need to fiddle around with Painted Bluffs or anything to get good mana here. Onward is a little appealing, but without the chance of casting Victory, it's really just like a bad pump spell. Even though we do have Fling and some trample creatures, it still doesn't look that good. So, some hazes for the sideboard. This looks like our deck is well set up. Consuming Fervor is interesting, but adding more -1/-1 counters to our stuff doesn't look great. It is interesting with Decimator Beetle, where you can keep taking them off. But yeah, we ended up with 13 creatures, plus some removal spells, Trial of Zeal, Heaven to Earth, and our spell lands. So, yeah, Tormenting Voice to help mitigate a flood. So we're pretty well set up here. Looks like an even split between red and green, plus a swamp, and then we can take out one of each of these to put in our other guys. Not too hard of a build here. The mana looks good. The sideboard looks devoid of anything we really need to put in our deck. So here it is. We'll take this on a test drive through through a draft.